We will start as usual with introductions, going around and then out in the audience. You want to start, Emma?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Emma Sagor. Yuri. Thank you. I'm blinking. Can you try it again? Okay, can you hold on a second? So we can only have four.
Okay, there we
you're on
go. So yeah, we can only have 4 microphones unmuted at a time, so we'll try to keep an eye on that. But hello, everyone, I'm Emma Sagor. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Assistant City Manager and the Interim Finance Director, and it's great to be with you.
Hi, I'm Mary Rowe, citizen member of the Budget Committee.
Hi, David Chitzazan, citizen member of the Budget Committee. He, him pronouns.
Hi, Robert Massey, City Council.
Hi, I'm Leslie Schachner, a citizen member and chair, I guess.
Lisa Beatty, Mayor.
William Johnson, citizen member. Adam Kasrabadi, city councilor.
Ann Ober, City Manager, she, her pronouns.
Peter Passarelli, Public Works Director.
Jennifer Garbely, City Engineer.
Michael Osborne, Assistant Finance Director.
And on Zoom, I believe we have Sophie.
Yes, hello. Sophie Sherman Burton, citizen member. She, her are good for me.
Okay. Well, then let's get started. We're going to do the approval of the minutes, and we actually have 2 sets of minutes to review and approve tonight. We'll start with the minutes from August 14th. Does anyone have any comments or corrections to the minutes from our meeting in August? Yes, no? Can I hear a motion?
I move to approve the August minutes. I move to approve the August minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So those minutes passed unanimously. We'll go on to the minutes from our last meeting of November 13th. Are there any corrections or comments on these minutes?
Well, we have 2 versions of these, right?
Well, we have.
We have one with some edits that maybe you made? I don't know.
No, this is the final one that's in the packet here. It
Oh.
doesn't have any edits.
Any red
You
lines?
want to look at,
Well, I have 2. I just, I don't know why I have 2.
I don't
I have a
either.
draft and I have well, they're both marked draft, but I have one with some redlining and one with not. Other people don't have the redlining?
No.
Huh.
I'll ask Judy to correct me if this is wrong, but I believe we sent out 2 versions. One that has the red line because we received some grammatical edits afterwards. And because those weren't discussed on the record, we wanted to show those. I believe the one that's in your packet is with the red line accepted. Is that right, Judy? No, okay. So Judy, just because for the microphone, the ones that are in your packet are prior to the red line, because those red line comments were received after the meeting. We can talk about, if you've had a chance to review the red line ones and are comfortable with those. You haven't, Leslie?
I didn't, no.
Okay.
But, I mean, I'm willing to, the people who have read the red lines, if that's the one we're supposed to adopt.
Am I the only one who, do other people have red lines? No? No?
I saw it in. Yeah, I was gonna say it's at the bottom of it. I looked at
Okay.
it before.
Okay.
Oh, it's in the
Yeah.
packet, it's just not in the
Yeah.
right place.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I think, from my read of them, they're mostly good sort of clarifying edits.
Oh, yeah, I agree too.
Motion to approve
A second?
With the red lines?
With the red.
with the red lines.
Okay. I'll second.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one, it passes unanimously. Okay, let's move on now. We're at the public comments section. Do we have anybody from the public that wants to comment tonight?
I see no one in the audience and we have no attendees on Zoom.
Okay. Then we will go to our city manager update by Ann Ober.
Thank you. So we have a few updates that are worth talking about here. First and foremost, the last time this group met, we had a different finance director. So I just wanted to call that out. Emma Sager has been helping support Michael for the last month and a half. It's actually been going really well. I deeply appreciate both of them stepping into this space. We are still, this is not the audit committee, but we're still working on the audit documents. Those have been submitted. And then in terms of the budget, we're committed to being on time, but it's been a lot of lift. So I just really appreciate how the team's been stepping in. We are being supported right now by Bonnie. So she is working on contract with us. She's
Bonnie Dennis.
Bonnie Dennis, our former finance director. She is supporting us from Denver. And then we also have a contract with Marina, and they are going to be helping us with just a proof checking of the documents before you receive them. So it's been actually a really wonderful partnership, and I really appreciate this team stepping up. They've done excellent work.
When you say the audit documents have been submitted, who were they submitted to?
They've been actually submitted back to the audit firm for review by the partners. Those need to now go to the state once those have been reviewed by the partners. We did receive a lot of edits, which is unusual for us in our audit. And so those have taken staff more time than we had hoped in order to get through them. And when I say a lot, I mean, I think we're up to 290 edits. So it was an incredible amount of work for the team to turn that around, and I appreciate their service in that space.
Thank you.
Yeah. The second piece of this is that we've sold old historic City Hall. I don't know if you've seen the fence around the building, but it's started. I actually received a really great picture from Joseph of some exposed floors. So they are inside, they are working on pulling things out and getting all of the old furniture out and starting the renovations, which is really exciting. Am I allowed to say a date? Yeah, April of 2025 is what we're going for. And right now it's Freem Brewery for full food service and Keeper Coffee. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a great space. I'm excited about the design and we have money in a budget. So that means that we've received the payment, and that also means that in the next budget, you will not see a City Hall fund. We'll be closing the City Hall fund because we will be completed with that project. Nonprofit low-income housing tax credit was discussed, or tax exemption, sorry, was discussed on a joint school board meeting with the city council last week. I actually thought the meeting was exceptional. So if you have a chance to watch it, it was a great discussion about how people in crisis are existing here in Milwaukee and ways that we can work together in order to provide better service. The proposal that was presented by city staff was that we do a nonprofit low-income housing tax exemption. We've done it once before for Northwest Housing Alternatives when they did their housing design. This is not something we expect will be used often, but could be the make or break for us getting more nonprofit low-income housing. So the school board sounded interested. They're going to be discussing that. We'll be bringing it forward with a resolution to council to consider it on our side, but you may see that. Hit us, it's not a lot of property tax, but I think we were seeing it as like $30,000 for a year of property tax. So it will have some impact on our general fund. Yeah.
So the tax exemption for low-income housing, will that then allow there to be housing at lower rates than the kind of apartments that are going up now? I mean, I looked at some of those when I saw that was going to be on the agenda, and they're pretty expensive.
They are expensive. I think that
For
this would be.
families that are not making anywhere close to the median income, they're very expensive.
Yeah, and there's a couple of ways we're investing to try and make some of the apartments more affordable. So the construction excise tax is one of the fund balances that you all see. So that is a way that we collect when people make for at market rate housing, and then we reinvest that into more affordable housing. This would just be another incentive that helps that layering effect for for groups that want to come in and do nonprofit housing development in town. I'm going to give an example. It's not a great one because it's a government agency. So Hillside would be an example of the level of housing we're talking about. They already are tax exempt because they are run by the housing authority, but we're looking to create that type of housing. This isn't for 100% AMI. I think there's actually rules below 60% AMI to start.
It has to be 60% in the first year and 80% after that. And properties have to recertify every year. So if a development started as affordable and then later on changed to market rate, it would no longer be qualified under the exemption. The one development we do have in Milwaukee that's already utilizing this exemption is Walsh Commons, which is a Northwest Housing Alternatives property right across from the high school.
I'm just remembering when I used to work in housing a long time ago, and when I was looking at up some information on it, the Census Bureau said that our median income was like 76,000. But I know that if you just look at the minimum wage, you're under 40,000, and so when you have a family. Back then, it was still true that you would have builders that wanted to build for the median, but in fact, lots of people that needed housing couldn't even get close to affording that. So I guess what I want to say is I am in favor of having more nonprofit housing in Milwaukee because I think there's a very good opportunity they can address that issue.
Well, and a couple of things it may not be true today, and I would have to invite Joseph up. When we were working on housing 3 or 4 years ago, 80% AMI was Milwaukee's AMI. It was our 100%. So generally, we've had families that make less. We've liked that. We wanted people to be able to stay home. We wanted people to be able to afford their living situation here. It's one of the things that makes Milwaukee really great. So 80% AMI is closer than the 100% is my guess to most of our families. The second thing to keep in mind is that the reason that they say up to 80% is that sometimes families start to make more, and we don't want them evicted because they start to make more than the 60% AMI. We want them to have time to actually grow into a future home. And so that's part of why you see that graduation up after the building is certified. But it was a great conversation. It really, we talked about the Wichita Center. We also talked about both the services being provided there and the need for the school district to still have that service out of the Wichita Center or in Milwaukee. Any other questions on that front?
I guess my comment about the median income here is that there are a number of new houses that have been built in Milwaukee that are very, higher income, and so I think that Milwaukee, which used to be mostly a working class town, is changing demographically.
It is, absolutely. And that's why this is important.
Right. I'm in favor.
Okay, the last piece is the capital improvement plan. So we're here tonight to talk about projects. We're going to go through the project list. The budget committee actually already sat. The community member sat as the CUAB. I really appreciate that. So some of this is going to be redundant, but it'll hopefully bring about a bigger conversation. We are currently working on the biennium budget. We did need to go back and look at our forecast. So we're going to be a little bit more vague tonight. We're going to be much clearer by the time we meet with you next. But just so you know, that's coming. And then the final thing is that we are, when I first arrived here, the CIP had been driven largely by a process that the council had just gone through with the community around the SAFE fee. And that program prioritized a long list of projects, and then the council bonded for those projects, and then we delivered them. We have done the first tranche. We're now into the second tranche of funding. Tranche meaning set of money that we got out of bond debt. And knowing that the community has changed over the last 7 years, we are proposing that staff go out and start meeting with NDAs and community groups to talk about what the criteria are moving forward. So we set that North Star based on our community today. It won't be for this budget. It's too late. This budget is set. We're going to talk about the CIP tonight, but starting in July, we will start going out and meeting with community groups to talk about how the CIP is set, what's important to Milwaukeeans, and help us bring that back to this committee in the future so that you all are best prepared going into your next budget cycle. We did at one point talk about having a third tranche of funding for SAFE. That's going to be up to the council. When we get there, it's still probably 1.5 years out before we're really ready to make that decision as a team. Council may or may not decide to do that. We're going to hear tonight about water projects and some other priorities that also need to get done. And so that is just a heads up that we're going to be talking, reopening those conversations with our community. I think the last thing I just wanted to highlight is we, during the last budget meeting, talked about the fact that we've always sort of looked 5 years out at a cliff, right? Every time we do a budget, we say in 5 years, it's going to be real bad. But we build a budget that gets us through the 5 years, and we're just always prepared that in 5 years, it's going to be really bad. It's 3 years. So the numbers are just, things got expensive after the pandemic, with inflation, with employee costs, with all the things that are just now happening. It's just getting harder and harder for us. We're also capped at that 3% under 5 and 50. And it means that our general fund in particular is not growing at the same rate as our costs. You're going to see that. I'm more just giving you a heads up so you're not surprised as we get into budget. We're trying to manage that right now, but the management may come down to a conversation with council in the future about how we manage the revenue side of that, not just the expenditure side of that. We're not there today. Just letting you know, budget committee, we don't have the kind of money we used to have. Okay. Any questions about anything I've said or anything else happening in the city? Nobody wants to ask about new seasons? Ace Hardware?
Is the going out and surveying people due to set the next, I guess, round of CIP? Is that based on the fact that the original commitments have pretty much been done and there's an opportunity to expand the focus, or what?
Well, it's up to the council. So there are still projects that'll be left on the list from SAFE. A lot of the lists in tranche 3 were grant funded, or at least partially grant funded. So like railroad was on there. We knew we couldn't do railroad without receiving grant funding. But there are going to be projects we're going to talk about tonight that would have to either get done in a third tranche or probably will have to get done farther in the future. We just don't have the ability under the current tranche of funding with the inflation that we're seeing to be able to do every project. So that's a great question. I don't know the answer yet.
But it's not that everything will be done. You know,
Yeah.
we're 2/3 done basically, because we've done 2 out of 3 tranches of funding against the SAFE.
Well, we did larger tranches than we originally planned.
Yeah.
So it's not a perfect answer. There are 2 people here tonight. They're going to talk to you more about it. They'd probably be the right ones to answer it when we get further into the weeds.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, is that all? Are we done?
I can always talk more, Leslie. Is there anything else you want to know?
Okay, so I guess the next thing on the agenda is a budget development update with Emma and Michael.
Thanks. Michael's going to kick us off talking a little bit about our budget development calendar.
Hello, everyone. Emma and I have been working hard on the budget the last 6 weeks or so. This is both of our first experience with the city of Milwaukee doing a budget. So we're both learning on the fly and kind of figuring it out as we go, but I am very happy with the process we've made so far. We've kind of broken it up into a couple tiers. In January, February, at the beginning of January, we went out to all the departments and had them start entering in their budget into our software system, OpenGov. We kind of assisted in January if anybody had any questions. We looked out to true up financial 24, where our trends were going. From that point through the end of January, everybody had time to enter into the system. Then in February, we took those numbers and put them into Bonnie's spreadsheet is what we're calling it, which is more of what you guys have seen in the past, an Excel version of the budget. From that, we've been meeting with each of the individual departments to make sure to kind of defend their budget, hold the line process to see if there's any needs that they need outside of that, how true and realistic that budget is. We've been having those meetings and we finish those up tomorrow. From then, did you have a question?
Is the hold the line budget a percentage of the current budget, or what is that?
No, it's the dollar amount of the previous budget from 23,
Okay, so no
24.
increase.
There's no increase at all.
Okay,
For M&S.
For M&S.
okay.
So from here, the next step for us is to meet the city leadership team to meet and kind of review the budgets on a higher level scale. Our pencils down date is March 14th. I know that Peter last week met with some of you with the CUAB to go over rates. And I think he has a little bit more to discuss in front of all of you tonight. April 2nd, we're going to council for a proposed fee schedule to have you all look at that. From there, by the end of April, we're taking all that data and putting it together into the budget book that you've seen in previous years. I know that there's a couple new members here, so how we've done it in the past is on April 27th of this year, we're going to have the first night of the budget meeting. And at that meeting, you'll get the budget binder that will have everything in the budget on it. And we'll give an opportunity to talk kind of the city as a whole. And then you'll have a chance to review the budget, look. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me or Emma and we can go through it. The following week on May 4th, the department heads will be meeting to come in and explain their budget and answer any questions you have. We hold a third meeting on May 11th if we needed it. We're hoping not to, but if it kind of bleeds over, we have that just in case. And then on June 4th, it will go before council to review and adopt the budget.
So the dates under the budget committee are all actual meeting dates?
Yes, April 27th, May 11th, April 27th, May 4th, and May 11th. And I'll be sending out save the date emails tomorrow.
Is one of those a Saturday?
I think all three of them are Saturday.
Oh, okay.
And I think that in the past, we've always started them at 10 a.m. I think we're open if somebody wants to make it at a different time, but I think that's the preferred time we'd like to start. A couple other notes to note is that, as Ann said, we've contracted with both Bonnie and Marina to help guide us through this process. We've been meeting with Bonnie weekly to get her intake of where we should be and kind of point us in the direction of where to go for the next phase. And then in April, before we bring the budget to you, we're having Marina go through and review it to do a QA, QC of it.
Bonnie is the former finance director and Marina is,
Marina is our former auditors, 2 years in the past. They have gotten out of the audit business to go through and kind of be a guide for cities in budgeting and auditing processes. And so we've reached out to them and they've been helping us with the audit.
okay, so they have a history with.
They have a
audit.
history with the city.
They're certified professional accountants and have a history with the city. And as Michael said, actually got out of the audit game because I think they found it more interesting and more beneficial to kind of help cities with consulting matters just like this. So they're a perfect partner to be that extra set of eyes. Michael and I are doing the best we can to dot every I and cross every T, but we feel really good that we've got them to check all the work before it goes to you.
They've helped me a ton in the last month or two, going through audit questions, going through budget questions. It's kind of a good place for me to go to just double check to make sure that everything is correct.
And they were our auditors for 2 cycles at least, maybe
Yeah.
3, yeah.
We wish they were still doing audits. The final other thing to note is, as far as design and layout of it, we're keeping the same Excel Word documents as we've done in the past. You won't see a final version in April. We're not going to do all the graphics and high-level stuff by that point. So the version you're going to see is a little rougher, but the numbers and everything will be the same. The narrative will all be there. And then once it's gone through the budget committee before the council, then we'll start sprucing it up a little bit with graphics.
And the reason we're doing that was really kind of like a process improvement as we were reviewing the budget calendar. We ended up spending quite a bit when we have changes to make after the deliberation, going back to the graphic designer. So it's going to be a really readable, really, it's going to look good, but it will save money and save time by giving it to that graphic designer once all the edits have been made following our deliberations.
So when you say we're going to be reviewing a rougher. When you say we're going to be reviewing a rougher draft, that's on April 27th, we'll be reviewing.
And that's visually a rougher draft.
Right, I get it.
Yeah.
The numbers will be good.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on the schedule or anything else from the?
I'd just like to note that I will not be here on the 27th, so I will have to get mine a few days later and catch up before the 4th, but I will do that.
Okay. Let's.
And so we just have one more slide, Leslie, on
Okay.
forecast notes before Michael and I relinquish the microphone. And Anne already previewed quite a few of these messages, but we know that you saw the forecast or saw a forecast back in November. As Michael mentioned, that forecast gets into a sharper and sharper picture the more we put into it. The more we put in fiscal year 24 actuals, the more we put in the proposals for this year. The great news about working with Bonnie again is the methodology we're using is exactly the same as what you saw last time, which is great for consistency. The picture, as it's coming in clearer, it appears the same as what we started talking to you about in November. As Anne said, that 5-year cliff, that 5-year deficit is moving up. Now it's looking like fiscal year 28 is when we start seeing things go into the red for the general fund. We're okay for this biennium, but it means that we need to start thinking and having conversations with you and with council about the strategy there. The second thing, and you'll hear a little bit more about this tonight, is when we look across our utility funds, so our non-general funds, both SAFE and the water funds are also showing going into a deficit in fiscal year 28 for slightly different reasons. On the SAFE side, it's some structural things with how that program is set up, and on the water side, it's kind of capital expenditures and it's just the size of those that we see. Peter's really the expert to talk about those. But again, we know they're coming. They're not going to affect this biennium, and so we have time to strategize with you on the way we as a city prepare for and and rectify that. The third thing I just wanted to mention when we do the forecast, including when you see it in April, because I doubt we'll be done with bargaining by then, we are in the midst of contract bargaining with both of our unions. The police union began bargaining today, and AFSCME, our other union, will start in March. So our personnel impact picture is a little unknown until bargaining and contract negotiations are complete. All of those things combined are really what informed Anne's direction to staff to hold the line. It's a, be conservative, kind of be really responsible, so that with those unknowns and with the strategizing we're going to have to do, we're in a really good position to do that. So as Michael said, we've been meeting with all the departments about how they're going to do that, because holding the line, given the rising costs of everything, it can feel like a cut. But we're up to the challenge. We're taking it on, and we'll share a much deeper, more detailed forecast with you at the next meeting. But if you have any questions on these trends, I or my colleagues would be happy to answer them. No.
Okay, so now we're going to move into the utility rate discussion with Peter and Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm Peter Passarelli, the Public Works Director, and over the last, I guess, six to 8 weeks, we've had an opportunity to develop some recommendations. Since I think the last budget committee meeting, the CUAB has met twice, once in January and once this month, earlier last week, to talk about our utility rates. In January, the meeting that we held, I walked the committee through how we go about projecting revenues for our utilities, and talked a little bit about some of the larger projects that we had in place. And then last week, we met last Monday and talked about staff rate recommendations, and walked the CUAB through those recommendations. And then the CUAB voted on those recommendations. And what we're bringing forward for discussion here tonight were those recommendations. So what we're looking at was projecting 2-3% increases on our water utility. Those rate recommendations really sort of capture some of the inflationary costs that we see within our utility as it relates to some of the increased material costs and increased energy costs that we see from PGE in particular on electricity. And those will sort of set the stage for us to make sure that we have the funds that we need in this next biennium.
Isn't part of that also that we have sort of past due maintenance that we're having to work on in terms of bringing one of our reservoirs back online?
Yes, absolutely. So we do have some rather large capital improvements that our water utility is undertaking currently right now. We have our big SCADA project that I think I've talked with everybody before, a $1.9 million project. We hope to have that completed by the end of June, maybe early July at the latest. So we have that project. We also have our Stanley Reservoir project that we recently awarded. And that's a $2.7 million project using ARPA dollars. We're going to start that project construction off in the fall when we can take it down after we have some of our peak demands out of the way. So we do have those big projects going on currently and moving into the next biennium. We also have some projects that Jen's going to outline as well that we're going to be spending some money on. Our long-term projection, though, right now for the water utility is, as Emma mentioned, we're going to start to see a deficit starting in fiscal year 28. And a lot of that is reflective of the capital improvement program that's been identified in our systems plan. but also to address some of the long-term needs that the utility requires as it relates to upgrades to our water treatment facilities that have been in place since the early 90s that haven't had significant upgrades. Our future reservoir needs that we have to meet growth demands in the future. So those are two of the really big projects that we have. And you know, the aggregate of those, we're talking, you know, $10 to $20 million worth of investments over the next decade that will need to take place. What we're going to be doing over this next biennium, though, is working with some consultant teams to help us develop higher confidence project estimates for those projects, and also to help us to develop a financing plan on how we're going to pay for those projects.
I'd like to speak.
Oh,
what that means.
oh, yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Peter. So, looking at these numbers here, so we're not looking at a near-term rate increase for wastewater and storm. Is that how I read that?
That is correct. And, you know, those utilities currently look well in terms of the operations and maintenance expenses, debt service, and the capital programs that we've outlined. The revenues that we're projecting are sufficient to manage those capital through the next 6 years. You know, one of the things that we've seen on the wastewater side in particular is the treatment costs that we are charged by WES have remained flat as current debt that they've had taken out is being removed from that debt structure for the treatment costs. So where in some cases we've projected 5% increases for treatment costs in the past, currently we're not expecting to see those treatment costs go up. We're expecting them to stay the same. Our energy consumption on the wastewater side is considerably less than it is on the water side. We have the 5 lift stations that we manage, but they're not always they're not pumping 24 hours a day. So we
But
have,
you would like to see near-term rate increases on water and transportation. Is that correct?
yes, and yes, I was certainly gonna. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. One of the other things, though, I was going to mention, both on the water and the wastewater side, is we are in this next biennium going to be doing a cost of service and rate study. We'll work with a consultant to help us go through and look at the water and wastewater utilities to make sure that the different customer classifications that we have in place aren't subsidizing other customers. So we'll be doing that in this next biennium. And as, of course, the stormwater utility, I'm recommending 0% increases on both of those.
So do these cards mean that you guys have questions right now, or are you willing to wait? Lisa, do you want?
Sure.
Okay.
One of the things that we'll see in this biennium is hopefully the adoption of our stormwater system plan that will provide a new capital improvement plan for the stormwater utility. And that may, in turn, make adjustments to future rate adjustments for the stormwater utility. Our transportation utilities, our SAFE and SSMP funds, we adjust those rates based off of the Seattle Construction Cost Index. That's sort of an automatic rate adjustment in the ordinance, in code. We moved to a 5-year cost or average because we were seeing some sort of significant adjustments in those rates of some high variability based on inflation. So that 5-year average sort of smooths out big jumps that you might see year to year. It does have a consequence though, because sometimes we don't fully capture those full costs of the inflation when we need to. But it tries to reduce the impacts to customers. The other thing I was going to say is, you know, in the 26 and fiscal year 26 and 27, we'll probably see those proceeds of the 2023 bond, particularly on the safe side, go away. We'll have expended those funds, yes.
They're not going away.
Yeah, we'll have
Yeah.
expended those funds.
It's
The
turning
SSM
into infrastructure.
Right, the SSMP and transportation, there's still some proceeds within those that will still remain in place.
Okay, so questions now?
Yeah, you just said that the Stanley Reservoir was an ARPA project, and I didn't realize that. I didn't realize we had ARPA money for other than parks. So can you say a little bit about that and how much of that's paying for?
Well, the full project, the $2.7 million
Oh,
project
really?
is fully funded with
ARPA
ARPA.
money.
Yeah, with
Wow.
ARPA money, and we budgeted that in the last budget.
Mm-hmm.
We also have money that is going to the Ardenwald North project, both for water and wastewater infrastructure. I think about 990,000 in ARPA dollars for water and
Seven something.
745 for wastewater.
Okay.
Mayor, I just wanted to add, so we had, ARPA funds came in two different ways. One was through the state when, at the time Representative Power and Senator Taylor asked us if we were interested in doing a shovel-ready project using ARPA funds. The other was actually a city direct allocation. So the city direct allocation was one, there were more restrictions on it. It could only be used for certain infrastructure types. It couldn't be used for transportation. There were, the guides in those early days were just much tighter. And that's when we put it towards these two projects. So we had to obligate them, I think by December, right?
They need to be obligated by December 31st of this year.
This
year.
coming year.
This year.
So they are different fund pots, even though they both came through the same federal process.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So Adam, yeah.
Yes, thank you. I just thanks, Peter, so far. I just had a quick question on the increase. The 2.5% for wastewater and storm, those are both projected, right? Increases.
When you look at in the forecast that I
Right.
developed for those utilities, the current forecast includes 2.5% increases in those fiscal years, 27 through 28.
And does that depend on what market conditions can be at that time, or does that have any impact on
It
that?
certainly, it
Right.
depends on several things. So how we, what sort of inflationary impacts that we have, how we spend the dollars that are within our budget, particularly on the CIP side. I do have another slide that sort of talks through some of those assumptions, but, generally when we're doing this budget and projecting our revenue needs, we are also saying that we're going to expend 100% of the budget that we budgeted. And on the CIP side, I think historically we've seen like 50 to 55%, and we're trying to increase that to a target of 75% at least. So that's what that anticipates, that we're fully expending all of what we have in the budget, and we know that never happens.
Okay, thank you. So there's potential for us, it looks like we have some time to potentially minimize that impact too as well.
Right,
Potentially
absolutely.
take steps to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't seem like a big increase, but I know every penny, every dollar counts. And I appreciate the fact that wastewater and stormwater are both staying at that zero.
Yeah.
It seems reasonable.
Yeah, and when I say the 3% on water,
Mhm.
so that's our total revenue need. We need to increase our revenues by 3%. I think Michael or Emma had mentioned, we've got another meeting with CUAB early April, I think April 1st. We're going to talk about the actual rate design and what that looks like for making adjustments to the fixed customer charge and consumption charge for both of those for the water utility. And in some cases, some customers may see less than 3%.
Thank you.
But just to be clear, the only rate increases that we're looking at in this budget, this biennium, are the water and the transportation.
That is correct.
And the others are projections that might happen in the subsequent biennium.
Yes.
And yes, for utilities, but we do have fees, and there will be a separate fee conversation. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware. We charge fees whenever you submit permits or whenever you have to do an applicate, right? So all of those rates, they fluctuate. In some cases, they fluctuate based on the state. So like building fees are, building code fees are actually set at the state level. So yes, and.
Yeah, but in terms of these
Utilities
utilities that
tonight.
residents pay,
Correct.
that's the,
Yep.
right. Thank you.
The one other thing I would add too, on the wastewater side, we may make some revenue neutral adjustments to some of the fixed charges. Our last rate study that we did, cost of service study, indicated that there was still some some classification subsidies from some of the residential customers versus some of the large industrial customers. So we're trying to make adjustments to those fixed charges, which may result in a lower fixed charge for residential customers. So we'll look at that when we go through and do that design.
So we're done with this part?
I think
now?
another slide. One of the things I wanted to sort of do the bottom line up front, but I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the assumptions that went into this. So, we took a conservative approach as we were going through this, and within that consideration, I was anticipating minor growth within the city. And it's generally focused in the multifamily units, new multifamily units. We have some larger multifamily developments that are occurring. The rate projections don't capture every single, projected development. It captures the ones that we know that are happening, that are in the process of construction, and we've pulled in those new units. Generally, what we're seeing is an average of 3.8 water units for multifamily units. So we factored those types of numbers into our future consumption numbers for water and wastewater. We're not anticipating any new large water customers, industrial customers. And we really don't anticipate any significant changes in, the way that people are using water within the community. It's been pretty stable over the last 10 to 15 years. There's been a lot of improvements in water efficiency and appliances and plumbing fixtures and things like that. And we generally have seen all those improvements captured. So we don't anticipate, future reduction in water consumption from residential customers, nor do we expect to see increased consumption generally. In terms of expenses, we are seeing increases for electricity and material costs, and we try to factor those in. The budget, as I mentioned, assumes that 100% expenditures. We're trying to target 75%. On CIP, 95 to 98% on the other expenses, the M&S expenses. And like I said, historically, we've seen about 50 to 55% on CIP execution. And, if you think about it, one of the reasons why is those are big projects expending a lot of dollars. So if a project gets shifted or reprioritized, it's hard to spend all that money, right? So, any questions on that?
Sorry, just a quick question. Just to make sure we're on the same page for that April 1st meeting. I know we kind of discussed at the CUAB meeting, but for sure finalized now, April 1st, 5:30. Is that the plan for?
I think that is the plan, yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Is it?
You had both. You had one for CUAB and one for council.
Right, there's the CUAB meeting.
The CUAB one is the
Yes,
first? Okay, perfect.
yes, that's correct.
Perfect. Awesome, thanks.
And go to the next slide. I did want to just talk briefly about where these projections were as they relate to the policy reserves that we have. So our water utility has a requirement of maintaining 50% of its operations and maintenance budget as a policy reserve. So it's around, $2 million annually, plus or minus. What we're seeing is, with the water utility, as we mentioned before, it's going to be below that policy reserve in FY '28, and that's as a result of projected capital expenditures. The wastewater utility current projections indicate that we're going to be above the policy reserve level, which is 25% of the O&M expenses. It doesn't include the treatment costs as part of that. So we're in good shape there. The stormwater likewise shows a 2030, that we're good through 2030 above the target. SAFE does indicate that, the projections indicate that the fund will be below target at some point in 2028 if we spend everything out. There are some structural issues as it relates to the debt service and transfers that we've seen, that in some cases, the rate increases aren't necessarily keeping up with those expenditures, that we might have some additional adjustments to cover those expenditures in 27 or 28 in the next biennium. That's really sort of, a projection that may be adjusted or may change based off of additional growth that we might see. And then SSMP currently looks like that's going to be fine through 2030 as well.
So when you say it would be adjusted for additional growth, does that mean that would make the projection better?
That would make the projection better, yes. Yeah.
Just try to be
Yeah.
clear.
If we realize more revenues, yes.
One thing I would add is we're really utilizing the funds we're getting from WES to help out with I&I projects. So we're getting 33% of those projects covered by WES by moving them forward and getting them done.
So what kind of projects did you say, I&I?
Yeah, infiltration and
Inflow.
Inflow and infiltration, okay.
Yes. So our collection system, not taking on water that's outside of the pipeline that we should. So water coming in from root intrusion, groundwater coming up from the ground and your pipe.
You're making the wastewater pipes more secure to infiltration. Correct. I got it.
So that we don't have to treat as much.
Water. Right.
Yeah.
Which I have to say, one of the things that I appreciate about Milwaukee when I first moved here was that, in fact, they did have two separate systems, because when I worked in San Antonio, they didn't. And I guess Portland has the same problem. Old systems have that problem. Any other questions? Okay. Moving forward.
All right, I'm Jennifer Garbly, the new city engineer. So I'm gonna talk through a few projects we've got up and coming, but the first one I wanna talk about is Washington area improvements. So with this budget, we assumed we're gonna spend all of this money by June 30th on this contract. However, there's no way we can. So for this is a change that we're doing, and what we're gonna do is after June 30th, we're gonna tally up everything we've spent and whatever's left on that contract, we're gonna roll over into the next budget cycle. So you won't see this project in the new CIP. It'll come back to us in either September or October to do a supplemental and finish out the rest of the contract. That might also happen with MEEK if we don't get MEEK done by June 30th.
It doesn't mean we're going to quit work. It just means that the budget is going to be adjusted.
Yeah, so we're gonna do a budget adjustment. This means we're not double counting anywhere, which is really great from my end. It means whatever's left of that contract is getting moved over into our budget. So we've assumed Washington has been completed, but we know it's not gonna be completed. I just don't know what that exact number is. It's really hard to predict. So I feel that this is gonna be a cleaner, more simplified, here's what's left, we're moving this over, and then we'll complete it in the next fiscal year. All right. So let's move on to Monroe Greenway. You're gonna see this project broken up, and I think I've talked about it multiple times, into kind of really two areas. East, which is from Linwood all the way to 37th. This is our federal project that ODOT is running. We're looking at about $5.7 million. And we're anticipating this is gonna get constructed in 2026 to probably fiscal year 2027. And then we have our Central Monroe Greenway. And this goes from 37th all the way to 21st Avenue. We are still in getting our IGA signed with ODOT. We've got confirmation that the dollar's still there, so 1.5 million from ODOT, which is state funds, which we will be getting reimbursed to spend those dollars. It must be spent within 37th Avenue and 21st. So those are dedicated funds. We can't move those funds anywhere. They have to be spent there. And that's because you're really doing those connections on either side of 224. That's how we're getting those money. And then we also have some URA money that's within that area that we have decided to dedicate, and we bonded that money as well. So we're kicking off a study right now to work on the railroad crossings, which is exciting. And then we're gonna keep moving that forward. Any questions?
What will be different about the railroad crossings?
Not a whole lot. It's more safety measures to get both bikes and pedestrians across. So we'll know more as we get into that. We just kicked off that study to kind of figure out if we need to do a bigger rail order to put in more safety measures, or if we can do it within our existing rail order that we have.
Lisa?
Yeah, you said that the east segment would probably be built 2026, 2027. This central segment, what is your timeline for?
They want us to move a little faster at ODOT, so we'll see. We're starting now, but I think it could be going on. It might be done before actually the other project, depending, because ODOT wants us to spend. We have URA dollars now. I can spend those at any time.
All right.
So I'm kind of really 2026 is what I'm estimating right now.
And what about the 224?
Oh, 224. I think it says it on here. They're looking at finishing in 25 for design, and then construction another year. So that would be in 26.
Okay, so they're not, I mean, they're repaving this year, right?
No.
This summer? It's not this summer
No.
that they're repaving?
No.
Oh, that keeps slipping.
Yeah.
That's slipped a couple times, I guess.
So they decided to group in the intersection and the paving as one.
Oh, okay.
They are gonna finish design this fall and go out for a bid. I wanna say next winter.
Okay,
So it'll be the following summer that they are actually.
2026. Okay,
Yep.
okay. Thank you.
So we plan to do our water line. So the water line is about 75 years old and that crosses 224. So we've put in budget money, actually this next budget cycle to do that crossing this summer. I'm sorry, it'll be in October when we'll do it, because that's when it's lower demand. So October, we anticipate to replace that water line under 224 before they pave. So we're getting ahead of them before they start. They asked us if we could do it ahead of time, because it's also, they're on federal dollars. We would save a lot more money if we didn't bundle it federally, because that usually costs me about 40% more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And All right, here's Harvey Street improvements. So from the previous budget, we did increase the cost a little bit more, not necessary for inflation, but we added an additional wastewater project. The Public Works had came to us, so we added some funds from there. And then also we had a bunch of dead-end streets in this area that we felt would be nice to pick up. So we're using our bucket from our residential surface street repair. So we basically added funds to this to make it even more complete to finish. So we're looking at, it's under design right now. And then we're looking at construction starting in fiscal year 2025. Yep.
So, the dead-end streets, those are full repaves? That's not seals or anything like that?
It's a grinded inlay.
A what?
Grinded inlay.
Grinded
2-inch
inlay.
grinded inlay, not
Yep.
a full depth.
Yep.
So, yeah. Yep. Okay. All right, here's our Ardenwall North project. This is the one that's up next to go out to bid. We're really close to getting those plan sets ready. And then we know we have to be obligated by December because this does have ARPA funds. So we're looking at this going out in the next couple months, basically, to be on target to meet our deadline.
Could you explain the picture in the right-hand side? Is that a visual of what this street is going to look like?
Yes.
So it's going to have planters out to the,
No, those aren't necessarily planters, but it is a mountable curb on either side of the roadway. This concept is a shared street. As you can see in the other picture, you've got bicycles and cars in the roadway. And then this is also where it's also ADA compliant. So people will be in the street. So completely shared concept. This is really one of our first major builds out. The curbs there are also for drainage. So this street has quite a bit of drainage issue. So this will help bring that drainage into the roadway and then get it to the actual catch basins. We have several catch basins in this area that are undersized. So it's actually making them bigger to be able to obtain that water.
so the catch basins catch the water and then allow it to disperse slowly? Is that how they work?
It goes within our storm system, within this area, so it's probably collected. I imagine, it's probably going to Roswell at this point.
And so on either side of the cars, there's white blocks with flowers. What are those? Are those people's
That's
yards?
Yes, yeah, that's
Okay.
that's just people's yards.
Okay.
It's just kind of giving you a little bit of what's out there. We're still maintaining parking, in this area. So that was one concern by the citizens is would we still be able to park on the street? So we're not taking out, parking except for near the intersections. We want people to back off the intersection so we have better visual. As this neighborhood doesn't have a ton of stop signs. It's all controlled, area.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is a mountable curb?
It's just not, you can drive up on it, basically, either with a car or a bike. So they're kind of rolled, the edges.
So then is the parking on the sidewalk itself, or
There's no
it's just?
sidewalk.
Oh,
This has no sidewalk. You're walking in the street. You're biking in the street, you're walking in the street. These roads have less than 500 cars a day going down them.
okay.
Yeah.
But how will the parking be designated?
It will have gravel where you can park.
Okay.
Gravel will be placed because
So-
per our code, you
So
can park
that's
on gravel.
drainage. I mean, water will drain through the gravel.
That's
That's
true.
part of the catchment system.
Yeah, you could a little bit there as far as that goes, but parking would be designated by gravel. Yeah.
Mary?
Well, you said these streets have less than 500 cars a day, so just which streets are these? Because having the pedestrians in the street, it's just not quite adding up,
They're
right?
already using it that way.
Okay.
Actually, it's used as a shared street in this neighborhood. We're just improving drainage so they could actually walk down the street.
Which streets are they?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't remember all of them, actually. We have quite a few.
Sharon, 29.
Yeah, it's east of
Where did-
42nd going
Yeah,
to the dead end where the railroad is.
road is.
And where the spring water comes.
Comes in.
by.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, I didn't have that information. I should have a better map on here.
Also, I'm like kind of half joking but serious. Can we all go to OMSI and go to that area where they have the water? There's like an area where the water sprays down and it shows how urban planning helps the stuff drain. Because my son loves that area, and you guys have explained a lot of, I think, what I'm supposed to be getting out of that. So thank you very much. This is,
You're welcome.
yeah, it's really helpful.
And I'm hearing budget committee field trip to Aussie.
Yeah, we'll get right on that.
My son will lead it if you guys are interested in it.
Happy to take him too.
We did the
Everybody's
Orca
welcome.
exhibit about 60 times this year.
Nice. Okay. King Road improvements. All right, so we are in the middle of design. We've, when we hit about 30%, we identified some concerns about our stormwater system on there. So we got some we basically are requesting additional information. The biggest part is our dry wells are failing on King Road. So it's a little hard to do a transportation project when your stormwater system is not up to speed. So we have added some additional stormwater funds to this budget to help with that. We're still figuring that out. So we're still in design right now. And that's what's happening out right now is we're getting infiltration tests on King Road. So if you've been delayed, yep, that's me. All my fault. We're also taking a better look at where our water line is. So here we are moving curbs in, and I just wanted to make sure we knew where our water line is and where those curbs are going to sit to make sure it was completely on top of that water line. So we're getting some more information on that and trying to minimize how much we're impacting that.
Yeah, I have a real personal interest in dry well failure. And so what is causing the dry well failures along King? What's the root cause?
I think it's sediment, honestly.
Yeah, generally that's what happens over the time is the layer of gravel or sand that's in there that has drained away water, that's able to drain away, infiltrate the water out, has become packed up with sediments over time. So you lose the porous spaces that you have in the sand or gravel that might be in that layer. Sometimes you'll actually see the same thing happening in drinking water wells over a long period of time, that the gravel pack that's in there will become bound up with sediments that travel as you're pumping the water, and it'll bind that up and prevent the water from draining as quickly as you'd like it to do.
Okay, so as I understand it, you're saying it's sediment buildup, and it's not related to the size of the dry well itself.
It can be these are old too,
Sure.
right? So newer technology, we would be pre-treating before it hits that dry well. So you'd have less sediment even going into the dry well. So I think that'll help us in one sense, but then we might have also had it smaller size. When it originally went in, we might need some larger ones.
Okay, one more question, and I won't belabor it any longer, but have dry well standards changed with newer climate projections?
Well, that's a really good question. And that's actually something that we're discussing as part of our stormwater systems plan, identifying future needs for our system. King Road in particular, that neighborhood that's around there isn't connected to a piped infrastructure. So we are very reliant on these dry wells to take water away from pavements and to infiltrate it back into the ground. the stormwater system plan that we're working on, they're looking at, the dry wells, they're looking at how we're sizing the rest of our infrastructure, future infrastructure to make sure that it's sized to handle the changing climate.
Also giving those dry wells, they might be able to take the water, but if it's too much of a quantity, right, giving it space so it can actually do its job and drain at the rate it needs to, so.
Okay, thank you.
So if I understand it, part of the issue is that because the water wouldn't drain away, if there were a flood, it would be just flooding back out again onto the streets. Is that?
Yeah, I think we're not seeing a ton of flooding on King because it's actually going down to side streets, right? So, when we first put this project together, Public Works was like, no, we're looking great, we're fine. And it was like, oh, wait, maybe we should check on those dry wells. So we went in and did a little more research and sure enough, several of them aren't infiltrating as much as we would like.
How many are there? Is there some standard placement, like 2 a block or whatever?
It just depends on where we're collecting and where they were placed. So there's several along King Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you. And stop me if this is the wrong improvement area, but when we were talking at the CUAB meeting, I want to say you mentioned like there's like I think it was well 8 or something like that. There was one well that was non-operational.
We'll get to that.
Oh, that's a different place?
Totally different.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
That's a
Okay.
drinking water well.
That's what, okay, got
This
it.
is
I
dry
wasn't
well
sure
that's
if that was,
treating,
okay.
stormwater.
Got
We're
it,
talking
got
about
it, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay, yeah, well, we could drink it. It's probably just bad.
Okay. So now I want to bring up Stanley improvements. This is a whole new project. This wasn't in our CIP before, and we were approached by the county that they have some funds from their urban renewal district. And we also got approached because the Llewellyn neighborhood has done a safe routes to school study. So we are submitting a application for that. The tricky part about this is I don't have those funds completely dedicated right here, right now in the CIP. So yes, the county has agreed to it and I'm working on an IGA with that. So that seems pretty solid. With that, I don't have the safe routes to school for sure. And I won't know for several months after we put in our application if we're gonna get that. But it does mean that we need to still move forward with this project if we don't get that safe routes to school. Or we're pretty much giving away money that the county is willing to give us. The boundary is a little bit obscured, so the county can't cover all of it. So there is portions that the city is gonna be responsible for. So right now I've dedicated $500,000 from transportation funds to work on the design in hopes that we get that safe routes to school that could then backfill in the rest for construction.
Is any of the county money dedicated to the bridge?
The bridge is on the county.
Oh, good.
That's
That's the key to any of the other stuff, I think.
so the bridge, they're looking at, we may do something more like how they're doing with Linwood, where it's a separated bike and ped bridge crossing on one side, as that's significantly less expensive to do than replace the whole bridge, obviously. So I don't think we're gonna get a full bridge replacement, but we would get separated facilities for bike and ped. Is what we're talking about at the moment. We're still working on that scope.
I'm trying to remember what we discussed last week, but my recollection is that the Safe Routes to School grant, you're estimating that low compared to what's being submitted, right?
We're gonna submit a $3 million grant.
Right.
At the moment, I'm trying to only dedicate 2 million to Stanley potentially. I'm guessing at this point, right?
Okay.
So,
So if it comes in at 3, it might not go to this project anyway.
yes, we'll need funds for this project for sure.
Okay.
But there's other pieces.
There's other pieces of the plan in the, for the safe routes. There's some school stuff, there's some stuff on Locust. So it's not just on Stanley, but the majority of it needs to go to Stanley in order to complete this project, which we're looking at having, a path, 8-foot path all the way from Johnson Creek to King Road is what I'm scoping out right now, with hopefully a RFP, near the park.
Hopefully a what?
A enhanced crossing at the park.
At the park. Oh, okay. Oh, good.
With flashing lights.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, a big part of this project is it's 25 miles per hour, and we're seeing, well, I mean, it's about 1,200 cars, so it is on the higher side of a greenway, but the speeds are over 30, the 85 percentile is over 35 miles per hour. So this project would be definitely narrowing.
Yeah, because it's one of the only north-south routes.
Sure.
Everybody takes it.
But doesn't mean you need to go fast.
That's true. I'm totally in favor of this whole project.
So yeah, so my big push is to narrow the roads, slow people down, and then have a safe spot for bikes and pedestrians to walk. Okay. All right, Waverly Heights Sewer Reconfiguration Project. So this is a project that's been in the wastewater system plan for over 20 years, and we are actually doing it. Consultants is on board. We're looked at the first initial kind of cut, and it's exciting. We're looking at getting almost $1.1 million in West funds, which is great. Has made this project a little bit easier to digest because a $3 million project is big for wastewater. So, and I think we have a potential to come in even a little bit lower than that, as I've seen some initial design ideas. So, but we are moving forward, and we'll definitely see this constructed this next budget cycle. Okay, so water. Here we go. Here's your well 8. Well 8 is probably one of our most important wells we want to get up and running. So last summer, it was pretty tight. Our wells were pumping nonstop. We weren't keeping up. So we really do want to get well 8. We're going to first try to see if we can do a cleaning and get it back online. If we can't get it back online, it means we're drilling a new well. And that's a whole nother story.
So maybe just a little bit more on well 8. So that's the well that's located on Lake Road, at the corner of Lake and 224. It was a well that the city has re-drilled once before in like 2007, 2008. And that well ended up having some issues with some iron fouling bacteria. So there's a lot of iron in the groundwater there. And what occurred was the water turned red. So we were pumping water that had a red tint to it. So we had some consultants back in 2011, 12, 13 timeframe that had made some recommendations to do some mechanical and chemical cleaning to that well to try to kill the iron bacteria that was growing in there, to reduce that fouling that we were seeing. The city, for whatever reasons, I'm not sure what it was, decided not to make that investment. So that well's been offline since 2013. What I do know is drilling a new well, like our well number 2, when we looked at all of the costs associated with that, it was about $2 million. So I think where we've landed is what we want to at least give this a try for about 10% of that cost, about $250,000 to $300,000 to go in and chemical and mechanically clean it, and see if that works. If it doesn't, we'll have to look for another location to drill a well. We have done some very preliminary assessments of where we could potentially put a well, but it's going to be expensive. It was $2 million for the well number 2 at 40th and Harvey, where we have lots of infrastructure in place. We would have to, putting in another well, we would have to certainly provide some additional, build some additional infrastructure just besides the well itself, so.
We'll take a question.
No, I didn't have any questions. Oh, sorry.
So, Peter, I appreciate you wanting to save us money by spending 10% of a new well, but I mean, do we not have a paper trail of why the decision was made not to drill a new well or to abandon this well?
Not a detailed decision that I've been able to find. Our water operator, our chief water operator, feels like it's worth a shot. As Jen suggested last summer, during our peak demand periods, we're able to keep up with the demand, but if we have a well go down, then it really becomes, your fingers are crossed, we don't want another well to go down. So, we don't have that resiliency in place. We don't really have good documentation saying why we didn't follow through with those recommendations. So.
I don't know anything about, cleaning, disinfecting a well, but it sounds like a big job.
It is, what they'll do is they'll come in and introduce, they have certain chemicals that they, specifically design for the applications, certain applications in cleaning wells. So they're going to have one that they're going to design just to do for well 8. They'll take samples and figure out what's the water look like and use and set the chemicals up to do that. And then there's a mechanical cleaning as well. So, they have really sort of like big brushes that they're going to put down there and clean and swab out the well casing.
Okay, thank you.
So the problem isn't necessarily that there's iron on that site, it's that there's bacteria that likes the iron, yes?
There's a higher level of iron there. And then there's also bacteria that was somehow introduced in there that likes the iron that then causes the condition of having that red water. The iron bacteria itself isn't problematic in terms of causing a health concern. It's more of an aesthetic concern because we disinfect the water and kill that bacteria before it would enter the system, but the water's red. So
Where I was going with that is that supposing this cleaning is successful, how long would you expect it to be until you would have to clean it again if that iron is still present?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It would be a routine cleaning. It's probably something every 3 or 4 years that we would go back in and do a cleaning, and it wouldn't be at the 300,000, 350,000, 300,000 expense. It would be much cheaper, but it would be a maintenance item.
Right. Thank you.
There's also better brushes and mechanical stuff out there than there was 10 years ago. So I think there's I think this is worthwhile trying with what we've learned from other people have dealt with this. So, and we've got some great experts that are going to back us up on this.
Yeah, my question is, you said that you would anticipate that if this works, that you'd still have to go in and clean it every 3 or 4 years. But is there a routine cleaning that has to be done on wells anyway? I'm like, how would that compare? Is that really that much more aggressive than cleaning on other wells?
It is a little bit more aggressive. We certainly sample our wells routinely and look at what the water characteristics are. We don't see those same issues with our other wells. Much more of the maintenance that we have with our other wells are if we see a reduction in how much water we're able to pump out of a well, that's an indicator of maybe there's some sediment building up that we need to go clean the screens that are in the well, or we have maintenance as it relates to a pump, the pump that we have in there that we might have to pull and make a repair on. So those are generally the types of maintenance that you see more frequently in our other wells. Not necessarily this chemical and mechanical type cleaning. Those are more, generally more focused on when you have some sort of problem, similar to the well 8 one.
So I'm presuming there's not a permanent solution to it in terms of the iron and bacteria. I mean, is it possible to clean the well so that the bacteria is not there? Or?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
That one. I one of the things that I had heard that happened was the lubricating water that was used to lubricate the pumps was surface water from CRW, because there was a CRW line that we used to do that. So that's the story that I had heard, and it's actually something that you don't want to do, is use a different water source to as a lubrication source for those wells, for these wells, and it just the water characteristics of the surface water from CRW was different enough from the well or groundwater that it could have caused a problem. I mean, it's documented in several of the studies that we had looked at.
All right, so then we're gonna move on. This next biennium, we're gonna be working on kind of figuring out what we're gonna do with our treatment plants. They were built in 1990. They haven't really been touched. There's definitely multiple things that are still original from these treatment plants. So the first thing is what's actually there, what is out of date, what is not in compliant. Electrical is definitely needs to be brought up to code. We've identified several safety concerns within that. So we're gonna do a study and figure out what needs to be built, what needs to be updated, and then we'll move from there to figure out a design and then have a better idea of how much this is all gonna cost. Remember, we got 2 treatment plants, not 1, but 2. So both need to be looked at.
Oh, thank you. One is next to the public safety building and the other is at 40th and Harvey?
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct. And then we have our concrete reservoir that's over 100 years old. It's right now we're planning to do a tank liner replacement and then also some seismic upgrades. This wouldn't happen until after Stanley is operational. We don't want to have 2 reservoirs down whatsoever. We'll start probably the design phase of it, but we won't start any construction on the concrete tank until after Stanley is back online and running well.
So this is the one at 40th and Harvey.
Yep. The at-grade reservoir. And then we figure that's quite a bit of work. So probably towards fiscal year 26, we'll then start kind of diving into what does our new reservoir look like? Where is it going to go? What size does it need to be? What pressure zone should we put it in? All of those fun things we're going to start looking at as the treatment plants we find to be the first big item we want to tackle, and then the reservoir kind of the second priority there. All right, go ahead.
Peter, you've talked with us quite a bit about the control systems in the water system. I call it the water system. So is the water treatment plant improvements, does it include that?
It does. Yeah. I mean, there may be future updates to the control systems that we have, that our SCADA system, and that's pretty common. One of we should be making updates to those systems every 5 to 7 years. And I think
there are components of that system that are outside the water treatment plants, though.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so, and one other, question. These numbers are all design numbers?
They're your start. This is design work probably over the next 3 years, really.
Right.
So that's not all the money there.
Yeah,
This
because,
is what we feel like we can get through the next,
Yeah.
2 years.
but I think I mentioned a number over the next decade, it's probably $10 to $20 million of capital improvements. So I think those numbers are pretty reflective of those design costs and feasibility costs. The concrete tank improvement, that's not all design, that's actually putting in the liner and doing the seismic improvements. But the 775,000, that's sort
All
of,
design.
that's, yeah,
Okay.
that's the design piece.
Yep. All right. Okay, so Locust, this is the last one and we're done, unless you have more questions. Locust Road, 40th and 42nd Avenue improvements. So this is a hard one for me because we initially had talked about it in the bond, but we have done all the numbers, and with everything that's going on, we can design it, but we can't build it. So unless
In
we
this
go-
tranche.
In this tranche, yes, in this tranche. So this one is gonna be, I would like to be able to design it to know how much it's really gonna cost. And so we have a clear idea and we have a project shelf ready, for when we do the third tranche. So we can keep building wonderful safety things in Milwaukee.
I just have to say that I live on Locust Road and I have been involved with the budget committee since the early 2000s. And I can tell you that Locust Road has been talked about continuously and has never been done. I mean, the 49th out to Stanley was done, but not this one. So I'll be interested to see if it does in fact get done.
Yeah, this project could be broken up into smaller projects, so depending on what we decide to do, we may have to consider that. So, again, I put it out to try to get another grant. Because it's a great project.
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned on the 42nd Avenue one because when we put those yellow blockers in,
The diverter.
yeah, the diverter to make it so you can't turn left, it's diverting a lot of traffic into the neighborhoods now because people are having to go around that and they're going through neighborhoods to cut through behind Safeway and all that. So I'm just a little concerned safety wise. Is it a possibility to potentially bump that one up because of that concern? Because there's a lot of traffic on that, on 42nd.
I think that would depend on what else we're cutting.
Right, I'm just
So-
saying, that there's possibility to reprioritize if needed, right?
This hasn't been designed yet, we've only studied it, right? So the hard part about that is, you'd be killing probably like Harvey, but Harvey's already under design. King is already under design. Ardenwald North is already under design and has ARPA dollars, so I don't have any other projects to switch it out at the moment.
I didn't get a goose, so I'm gonna interrupt.
You can use
for a
mine.
second. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is staff is not deciding that we shouldn't do this. I think that there's a question of whether or not we want to do another tranche of money. Originally, we had planned on 3 tranches of bond debt. But that was a previous council, and we haven't had a conversation as this council. So our commitment was that we would come back to this council probably in the next year and start talking about whether or not you want to go into those next projects. The CIP process that we're leading, we'll talk about that with the community as well, so that they know that that's one of the options, is that we can keep that as our North Star for the next few years. It's not a no, we would have to do, this council and this budget committee would have to decide that they wanted to prioritize it, but everything else is further ahead, because when we prioritize these projects with the community, they fell out in this order. Does that make sense? But it's an important statement. Believe me, I think there's still projects out there that we think are really critical to the safety of the city. And so please know this is not me saying we shouldn't do it. This is me saying, I am not in this case the policymaker, and we'll bring it back to you for consideration. Yeah.
I mean, Jennifer said that, you know, there's potential to break it up, and I guess it does seem to me, I mean, I hear the chair on Locust, because I remember a former resident of that street whose emails had, his email signature line was, don't forget sidewalks on Locust Road. Yeah, it was Jeff, yeah. But do they, I mean, it seems weird to me to go forward with King and not fix the intersection of 42nd and King, yeah.
We will be solving, there is a component of that intersection in these projects, but go for it.
The reason why King is on there is because we're actually, when we repaved it, several years ago, we didn't update the ADA ramps. So we were out of compliance on King Road. So that is why King Road was originally in the first tranche, was a priority 1 project. However, I didn't feel we had enough funds dedicated to do a real project on King. It would have been a big Band-Aid that wouldn't have been a safety improvement to King.
Jen, can you just talk a little bit about that intersection and what your plans are for the process?
For 42nd?
Where the diverter went in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we're in the process of a study, right? So right now, I think I just got a draft of it. They've broken it out into a possibility. If we were to put a roundabout there, it's very expensive. We do not have the right of way whatsoever. So for me, it almost kills it because I don't have any funds to dedicate towards it. We could do a more permanent diverter at that spot that makes it very safe as far as that goes. The study indicated it provides very good movement through there, a safe movement through there. It does identify that we need to do some improvements on the local streets around there because you do have some changing of patterns. And we can fit a roundabout in at 42nd and Harrison. That's a much larger intersection. That brings it in complete compliance and moves people through that intersection safely. You could also do a signal. It's a little bit cheaper, but that means we have to maintain the signal the entire of its life expense. 42nd and Harrison. Yeah, I mean, my proposal is to actually leave in some type of diverter option. It creates the most safe environment for the as an arterial through King to 42nd to Harrison, which is one of our only east-west lines going through Milwaukee. As we're taking out Monroe to be an actual greenway, I'm diverting more people to Harrison. So I do have a pretty good component to make sure that that is moving forward through our city in a safe manner.
Yeah, Jennifer, is there any risk in designing this now with the possibility it may get construction may be put off several years because things change? And so I'm concerned about money being spent on design so far ahead, and then we actually get to construction time and who knows what's happened, and then you end up having to design it again. So I'm looking at that as is there a financial risk there?
I would agree. If you're not going to build it within 3 years of the design, you're pretty much need to relook at it. So I pretty much would say I wouldn't put it out to design unless we're going to build it within 3 years after that design.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just so you know, that's actually why we're having this conversation tonight. is we needed to start a dialogue around, we're getting to the end of the tranche, which means that we have to decide in the next year if we're gonna do the next one, or we shouldn't be doing work in this one, if that makes sense. So we will be coming back, this will be an ongoing conversation. Yeah, we have to talk about it for the next tranche. The other thing that I just wanted to call out, and she can be mad at me later, we have discussed whether or not a roundabout actually goes into that space at King and 42nd. I know that's a part of the community's dialogue. We don't have land there right now for a big enough space. That's why we're trying to find alternatives that we can bring forward to solve some of that. But just so you know, we do see it. We do see that there is a problem with that location. We're trying to figure out what we can actually not only afford, but get access to land for. So it's a twofer. Is that fair? Yeah.
And just to clarify the timeline of like kind of why this came about, and again, I question my memory sometimes, so I just want to double check from one of the CUAB meetings. But so that it came about because when the King Road stuff was happening, we learned it wasn't up to code, that intersection. And so if you're driving down King Road, you turn left by the 7-Eleven there. Those residents were the most at risk. Is that the area?
The intersection that's, is 42nd and Harrison.
Yeah.
42nd and Harrison.
Yeah, it's like Diverter Street, sorry.
The diverter.
King Road and, yeah.
We had on 42nd, we had people trying to make a left-hand turn when you had not only a crosswalk, but there was no stop sign. So no legal way for them to stop as turning from King onto 42nd.
Okay.
They don't have a stop
Yeah.
sign. They don't have to stop. They don't have to yield.
Yeah.
There is a sign for pedestrians that looks like a stop sign if you don't know the area at all.
Yeah.
And so people would stop, but they don't have to stop.
Yeah.
So then you're in a it was like a legal issue for the city.
And that just like that kind of popped up recently, and that's why it had to come.
No, I've known about it for about 6 years since I've been here at the city.
Okay.
And I finally was able to do something about it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, as a high frequent driver in this area, I just know that this intersection has a lot of people that use that bus system right there, and a lot of people that are super vulnerable. So I appreciate the council's expression of a need to expedite this, because if I'm understanding the timeline right, the turn was brought in recently, and if Tranche 3 started and everything kind of went according to the slide here, that's not changing until 2026 is when the design starts, so 2027, 28. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, if we got the funding, then we could move forward with construction right away.
Okay,
which would accommodate.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to identify that we can't build it at the moment with what we've got.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I just real quick, sorry not to continue on this roundabout. So there's just, the space is limited, is really the proper roundabout, right? And then what were you saying about the right of way? We don't have the right of way.
We don't own enough property. We have to buy
the street.
You have to buy additional to put in an actual. So the hard part is I can't just put in a mini roundabout. Because of this is an arterial, so it has to actually fit a fairly large truck through this intersection. So that's what really limits me in this area. I have a lot more space at Harrison and 42nd.
So we are legally obligated to create a road that will allow for the traffic that we see on the road as it's currently used today. Actually, our previous city engineer had a great example. I think it was in Wilsonville. He put in a roundabout and didn't plan on the tractor trailer with the combine coming through town. And the combine actually had use on the road, and they had to rip out the roundabout and replace it with something that would allow for because they've been historically using that road for generations. They had to rip it out and replace it. So it's not even just, it's not even what we want to do, it's what we are legally obligated to do for the type of road and the use that we have there, and the fact that it's right on a hub. It's right where we have grocery stores and businesses. Yeah.
I just am curious, and I don't imagine you've done traffic counts yet or anything, but I mean, we had a lot of consternation when it first went in. I haven't heard a lot of consternation more recently. I've heard a lot of things from bike riders and pedestrians that think it makes for a more safe intersection. So is it really as much of a problem as we were hearing initially?
I haven't heard a word come through my office in the last 2 months that there's been any issue. And I'm not saying that's not everything and I'm not hearing everything, but I'm not getting the complaints. I'm actually getting more thanks that we've made that intersection safe. But I do know that I am getting ready to pave a couple of streets in that area because people are using them more now. And so that's great. I have the ability to do that. We've set up a residential surface repair program, and we've set up a transportation maintenance program that we can use to do grinding anyways. And so we identified that, and we're picking up those streets to help ease that a little bit in that area. But I haven't received any negative feedback lately.
We've also seen people using it correctly now. So in the early days, people were just horrible around it, making illegal turns. I just want to call out our traffic team who have been making sure that people learned how to use the diverter correctly. Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just heard in the beginning when it was first put in, I heard some concerns about the neighborhood to the east of it, because they're having to go around now instead of being able to go, because they were the only ones coming westbound, from the west neighborhood going eastbound that had the stop sign.
Yeah.
That was the only stop sign there, and they were able to go to King, and that's the main complaint. My concern was just, I already know that it's because of how it's going, it's just gonna overflow that neighborhood behind Safeway in terms of the busy hours. That's where my main concern is just the increased traffic behind the neighborhoods for people having to go around that. That was just it. So, especially with school and everything and kids and the bus stop being there, as David had mentioned, it's a high traffic area, and to have more traffic along our neighborhood roads, where people tend to not pay attention to the 25 versus 35 speed limit on King is where my concern lies.
I have to say that I think I go through that intersection every day. I think that one of the things that may be an outcome from the changes that have been made is that there were a lot of people that were using King as a shortcut rather than going down Harrison. So if Harrison flows well, maybe people will not want to use King that way. I mean, I myself did that. So it does seem to me like they're, in terms of educating people how to use the roads and making certain roads work better, that might be part of the solution to this particular thing.
Yeah, and I would want to add another crosswalk in there. And I would want to narrow also the King so it looks more of a neighborhood route to help people not using that as a bypass, right? But like you said, you change that intersection at 42nd and Harrison, that moves people through there. They're going to want to take that route because it will become easier. Because right now it's failing in parts, and so they're cutting in other places and things like that. Did you hear anything else? You sound like you know about the neighborhood pretty good. Like any other comments about that 42nd and King? No? Okay. Just thought I would ask.
I'm just thinking about. I did during the winter storm. I did a nice little jaunt in the storm and walked around that area up to Safeway from where I live, and I don't know. I think from what I've heard from just residents around where I live. It kind of came as a surprise. I'm glad. I mean, again, safer is better. That intersection, especially by everyone going to and from the bus there, is super dangerous. But I think it was just more of a surprise. But
I apologize for that.
no, I mean, again, safety first. Yeah.
All right, that's all I got.
Okay, I just have one more comment on Locust Road. When you talked about breaking it up into projects, it's not actually a very long piece of Locust Road. It only goes from 43rd to 49. And so I'm trying to visualize how you would divide a short road like that up into projects. Would it be like one for paving and one for sidewalks? Or
No, actually, I would say it's about this whole project. So this is right now grouped as one project, Locust, 40th and 42nd.
Oh, okay, so you could split out those, got
I
it.
would break it out by
Okay.
42nd and 40th. Yeah, I mean, I bundled that originally because it's more efficient for us to put out projects that are bundled, right? But if we don't have the funds to do that and we need to split things back up, we have the ability to do that. Yeah.
All right, just to bring us home here, I was going to make this short and just hit a couple of key highlights. And then if anybody has any questions or anything they want to talk about, I can be around after, or you can email me. But the big things are we received property tax revenue in December. That was came in through the general fund. Another thing to highlight was the City Hall Fund. I just want to point out that as of December 31st, it was in the red. But with the sale of the historic City Hall, we received those funds last week and we're going to make that whole. So that will be going to zero and at the end of this fiscal year, go away, the City Hall Fund. The other funds seem healthy and normal. If there's any questions, I can take them in the short term.
I don't have a question, but I would like to comment on the property tax chart that you reworked
Right.
in response to that discussion, which I appreciated,
Yes.
that it was done so quickly.
Of course.
And it's, I think it still makes the point that Lisa was making, which is that our expenses are increasing faster than our stable source of revenues. So, but I did want to mention that. I appreciate the chart. Any other comments?
I think we're good.
Everybody good? Okay, then, I guess anybody have any other business?
I would just note, I noticed that, Joseph left, but his memorandum that he gives to the city council about projects around town is sort of at the back of our packet, or not, it's not the exact, all the way to the back, but close.
33, page 33.
Page 33. This is something council gets, monthly or, more or less monthly. And it's usually in our work session packets. So to the extent you find these useful, the citizen members find these useful, or the general public, I think they're great. I am always looking forward to them when they come out, and I learn a lot. I like to keep track of what's going on with the different projects around town. So I just wanted to sort of commend those to people and to let you know that you can find them, once a month in the city council.
In the city council packets. Okay, there used to be a spreadsheet that came out monthly that I used to look at, and then it disappeared. So nice to know that.
This is the more easy reading version.
Yeah, this is the narrative, not a spreadsheet. Yeah.
Adam?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I remember when Toby was here, he mentioned that he was going to put together something for us that showed us like what the what the target revenue needs to be, like what the fund balance is, like the healthy fund balance of each fund, basically. Like, because some of them we're above target revenue, some of them we have larger amounts in the funding balance.
The reserves and
Yeah,
stuff.
so he was gonna show us like break it down basically, what's a healthy reserve and what do we have excess of and what could we,
We had,
if we had that.
I'm sorry if I didn't see it. Did he show the slide tonight for the utility fund balances? He has a slide.
He did.
You did. Okay,
Yeah.
so are you looking for so there were the 4 utilities, he did show that. But if there are other fund balances that you'd like to know how we set the reserve types, we're happy to do that.
I don't think he had the amounts on there. He just had if we were above target revenue or not.
We can get you the amounts. Yeah, that's easy.
I appreciate it. And then, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
I will say that, that it was a big improvement for the city when they actually began setting reserves, and you can see it as a line item in the budget, so it's not, it's opaque, it's there, if you read the schedules. And as Ann said, and Emma both, they're reworking the forecast. I mean, I personally was confused by there was data presented, but we didn't get anything to see that backed it up. And so I think that's what they're reworking right now for us in terms of the forecast.
Yeah, it would just be great for my knowledge, just to know what we consider, healthy, what we consider low, what's considered over healthy.
Right.
Or obese or whatever you want to term it.
That works.
But, yeah, thank you.
Lisa?
No, I'm not. Oh, sorry.
Anybody else?
I have just one small question. Again, I know I'm the weird guy that goes through all the detail of all this stuff. And maybe this can be just looked at for the next meeting. Just one random thing I noted
What
was,
page are you?
oh, sorry, thank you. Yep, I get too excited. I'm on page 11 and 12, which was the general fund stuff. And I noted the comment 5, which was on miscellaneous revenue includes energy trust rebate, sale of police vehicle, and a business payment in lieu of DEQ fine. And that's always been relatively stable, and I saw it jump up 80K. Was that a large portion of that related to the DEQ fine or the payment? And if so, was that a substantial violation because 80K is a lot?
It was an air quality violation.
Okay.
And we ended up, we received the funds to put in our chargers. So all of our fleet chargers around town, we've been doing some on our sites. Those were funded through that grant. So it was, I believe it was it Dave's Killer Bread?
Was it PCC?
No, it was Dave's Killer Bread for air quality violation.
Okay.
You can smell their bread all over town. I'm just putting it out there. They called us. It was actually a really great partnership. And we really appreciated them reaching out to us and making the offer to do something local and do something, that was in alignment with the council's goals. So it was a wonderful partnership.
And they're now in compliance.
They should be, or they're going to call me again and offer me
Okay.
more money.
Yeah.
But I have not heard.
That's good to know. Yeah, I just, anytime there's a big fine, I think of something crazy in the river or air, which is important. So just wanted to say. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Baked bread.
Okay, so if
Thank
there's
you.
no other business, if there's no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.